Welcome back to our studios here in Lahore. I'm Hamza Amjad, and let's begin the bulletin with Pakistan. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says India is planning a Muslim genocide in occupied Kashmir. Talking to the media in Azad Kashmir, Qureshi said Islamabad has told the world about India's intentions and brutalities in Kashmir. The Foreign Minister added that Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan will visit Muzaffarabad on August the 14th. Qureshi said the Indian government cannot hide the truth by blacking out the media and communications in the valley. He said Pakistan is celebrating the Muslim festival of Eid in solidarity with the people of occupied Kashmir. Representatives of all political parties in Pakistan offered their Eid prayers in Azad Kashmir to express their solidarity with the occupied valley.
I, as the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, have come here to express Pakistan's solidarity with you. Secondly, as Vice Chairman of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, I assure you that God willing, we will march together, march together, march together.
Meanwhile, in another act of state terrorism, Indian forces have not allowed any Eid al-Azha prayers congregations in occupied Kashmir. New Delhi's crushing curfew and communications blackouts in the occupied valley has entered its 8th day after India illegally annexed the state. The valley's biggest mosque, the Jama Masjid, has been closed. The Indian media says the occupying forces only allowed Eid prayers in a few small local mosques because New Delhi fears Kashmiri protests.
We wanted to go to Asare Sharif Shrine, but the namaz did not take place there, and neither did it take place in Dastagir Sahib Shrine nor in Sonwar. Nobody is listening to us. We have been cut off from the entire world.
The people of Kashmir held protests against Indian annexation across the occupied valley after the Eid al-Azha prayer. Kashmiris abroad are unable to contact their families on Eid because of the communications blackout in the valley. Many fear for the lives of their loved ones amid reports of Indian occupation forces using live ammunition against protesters on Sunday. Let's move on now. The 8th round of Doha peace talks between the US and Taliban have ended, with both sides remaining tight-lipped on the outcome. The negotiations are being held to end the 18-year-long war in Afghanistan. Taliban spokesman Zabiullah Mujahid says both sides will consult their top leadership before taking the next step. Calling the talks long and fruitful, Mujahid says the work has been effective. Earlier, US Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad said Washington is working for a lasting and honorable Afghan peace agreement. Moving on to Bangladesh, the death toll from a dengue outbreak has risen to 76 since July the 1st. The health department says over 2,000 people have been diagnosed with the disease in the past 24 hours. The report says nearly 300 people a day were hospitalized in July, when nearly 50 people died of the disease. The department says over 38,000 people have been affected by the disease since the beginning of the year. The death toll from the seasonal monsoon in South Asia has jumped to over 1,000 as torrential rains and floods continue to wreak havoc. India has been the hardest hit, with over 750 killed in Kerala, Karnataka and Maharashtra states. Since the monsoon arrived last month, landslides, flooding and lightning has killed 113 in Nepal. In Pakistan, 53 people, including children, have lost their lives in rain-related incidents in Azad Kashmir, Sindh and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Meanwhile, 97 people have died in Bangladesh as heavy rain lashed across the country, causing floods and landslides. In another natural disaster, 44 people have been killed and 16 others missing after Typhoon LEKIMA hit eastern China's Zhejiang province. Authorities have issued a high-level warning throughout the eastern region. Thousands of flights have been cancelled after a natural dam collapsed north of Zhejiang's province city of Wenzhou. Hundreds of trains have been cancelled and over 1 million people have been evacuated. Chinese state media says 3 million households have experienced power blackouts. Strong winds have destroyed 200 houses and over 66,000 hectares of farmland. At least 7 people have been killed in a militant attack during an Eid prayer congregation in northeastern Nigeria. Local media says the victims included 2 soldiers who were guarding the event. The media reports several others were wounded, with some sustaining life-threatening injuries. Earlier, 2 Nigerian troops and 3 civilians were killed when ISIS fighters attacked a base camp at Maiduguri on Saturday. Air Marshal Abu Bakr has urged personnel and officers to redouble their efforts to deal decisively with the country's enemies. The Syrian Observatory War Monitor says 69 people have been killed during the past 24 hours south of Idlib. It says over 100 air raids were carried out by government warplanes on Khan Sheikhoun, Ma'aret Hurma and adjoining areas. This comes after Turkey said the US deployed more military and logistics equipment to rebels in Idlib. Meanwhile, Russia says it has shot down 6 drones launched by rebels targeting its Hmeimim airbase in Syria. The Russian Defense Ministry says nobody was injured and no damage was done to the airbase. Over in Yemen, the southern separatists who had captured the country's official capital, Aden, have agreed to attend a meeting called by Saudi Arabia. The Saudi-led coalition fighting against Houthi rebels collapsed last week when infighting broke out in Aden. The Southern Transitional Council leader, Aidarus al-Zubaydi, says he is committed to a ceasefire in the port city. The coalition launched an attack on the separatists after calling for negotiations and a ceasefire. Earlier, the coalition threatened to launch a full-blown military operation against the rebels if they didn't quit the captured areas. Meanwhile, the UN said clashes between government forces and rebels have killed 40 people and wounded over 200 since August the 8th. A rocket has hit the Libyan capital's sole functioning airport, breaking a temporary ceasefire between the Tripoli government and Khalifa Haftar's forces. Authorities say Mitiga Airport has been targeted by rocket fire on the first day of Eid al-Adha. Following the attack, air traffic was suspended until further notice as smoke billowed from the runway and parked planes. The government has blamed Haftar's forces for attacking the airport and a separate assault in Tripoli's Soug al-Jumar district, which injured 3 civilians. Earlier, Haftar's Libyan National Army and the government agreed to a UN-sponsored humanitarian truce for Eid al-Adha. While the United States says it will support a post-Brexit UK with a free trade agreement, National Security Advisor John Bolton says US President Donald Trump wants to see a successful British exit from the European Union. He says the US wanted to work with Theresa May's government on a trade deal, but she was not interested. Bolton is in London for talks aimed at improving bilateral ties with the United Kingdom. Britain is scheduled to leave the EU on October the 31st. Guatemala's former prison chief, Alejandro Giammattei, has won the country's presidential elections. The conservative leader led with 59% of the vote, while his center-left opponent, Sandra Torres, took 41%. Guatemala's electoral tribunal declared the Vamos party candidate, Giammattei, the election winner. Mr. Giammattei was running for the 4th time, while his opponent, Torres, was making her 3rd attempt. He says he will try to renegotiate the controversial migration deal his country signed with Washington last month. Guatemalan voters say insecurity and corruption were their main concerns. Russia has warned Google to stop interfering in its sovereign affairs. The Kremlin has sent a letter to Google demanding it stop using YouTube video hosting to promote unauthorized rallies. The Russian telecom and media watchdog Roskomnadzor says it will take action if Moscow rally videos are not removed from the internet. 60,000 protesters in Moscow staged the largest demonstrations since President Vladimir Putin's return to the Kremlin in 2011. The protesters defied a crackdown to demand free and fair elections for Moscow's city legislature. Five children, including toddlers, have died after fire erupted at a daycare center in Erie, Pennsylvania. Police say the victims' ages ranged from 8 months to 7 years. Authorities say the inferno ravaged the center, which also provides overnight services for parents working late hours. Neighbors a block away say they heard the screams of teenagers who escaped from a second-floor porch roof. Erie Fire Department Chief Guy Santone says the fire's cause is under investigation. Santone says early inspections show the presence of ashes and cigarettes or cigar butts, which are banned in childcare units. Constellations of colors woven with fragrances have aligned themselves on the streets of the Colombian city of Medellin. The annual event celebrates the craftsmanship of creating breathtaking floral arrangements. More in this report.
Summer has come into full bloom as scores of florists descended on Medellin for a colorful flower festival. Celebrating the art of floristry, flower fanatics marched on the streets of the metropolis to show off their elaborate floral arrangements. Local families have dedicated themselves to flower production for generations near the flower-rich area of Santa Elena. Their highlight this year is a tribute to Colombia's first ever Tour de France victory. The parade dates back to 1957 when locals invited florists from nearby villages to march in the city. Winners for the best floral arrangements were announced at the end of the festival.
God rewards. I can't believe it. I did this letter yesterday with all my children and in-laws who helped me. I can't believe it in getting a prize. I knew what I was doing. I've been looking for it for many years and I've lost because of little things. I said the time will come and it will be perfect.
The people of Medellin, or Pesas as they are known, hope the flower fair will help restore city's image and replace memories of Pablo Escobar and drug trafficking.
The Berlin Wall fell in 1991 but continues to affect people's lives today. Two childhood friends who were separated by the wall in 1961 have only just managed to find each other. Let's take a look. This photograph is one of the most iconic images of the division created by the Iron Curtain. Today, the two teenage girls holding hands over the wall are 73 years old. Rosemary Badaszewski, who lived in East Berlin, is still surprised that the guards allowed the picture to be taken.
What I did was, of course, not meant to be. I ran straight to the wall without looking right and without looking left. The policeman who is in the picture should have stopped me. I did not think about it at all. I did not even realize what I was doing. I walked towards my friend with only that thought in my head.
The other wall girl, Kriemhild Meyer, says she remembers how surreal it felt when she found out her city was being divided.
It was a Sunday morning and I was with my cousin in Marienfeld. We heard the news and heard that the Russians, they always call them the Russians, wanted to close the border. Every day, the papers were filled with news about how many crossed the border the day before. So it was an obvious step for them to close the border.
136 people died trying to cross the wall to get to the western side from the east during the Cold War. By the late 1980s, the wall included 45,000 concrete blocks, 259 dog runs, and 302 watchtowers. Today, only a few remnants of the 3.6-meter tall monstrosity remain. Now, steel giant ArcelorMittal is striving to clean up and turn around Italy's most poisonous steel plant, while activists and residents urge its closure. Experts cited by prosecutors say 11,500 people have died from toxic emissions over 7 years.
On Italy's southern coast, rock climbers scale a giant canopy in Taranto to build the world's biggest iron ore park cover. Steel giant ArcelorMittal strives to clean up and turn around the country's most polluting plant. Beyond the factory lie the sea and sandy beaches, though only hardy souls dare to swim or eat mussels from there. The site in southern Italy's Zulia region, formerly owned by UA, is at the heart of a huge legal battle.
At the beginning of the year, there was condemnation by the European Court of Human Rights, which said that these decrees did not guarantee the health of citizens, and therefore the state should have taken note of this sentence and acted in a different way from where it did.
ArcelorMittal is spending 1.2 billion euros to curb pollution at the site by 2024. It was given a legal immunity to bring the plant up to environmental standards, but the Italian parliament revoked that in June.
This is the first important action being taken. It is to avoid, prohibit or prevent any dust flying due with conditions that we may have in the region. So this is a program that will be 80% complete in 2020.
Lié aux conditions, par exemple, de vent.
As Taranto suffers from record unemployment, some feel everything should be done to save the steel works. But ArcelorMittal has struggled to win hearts, while the company pledges to slash dioxin and dust emissions to below EU limits. They cannot be eliminated entirely. Families have been hit by abnormal levels of tumors and respiratory diseases.
There are two possible causes, pesticides or dioxins. We do not live near fields and are careful about hygiene of fruits and vegetables. Impossible. On the other hand, we live next to the factory that has been dumping dioxin day and night for years. 1 + 1 makes 2. No need to do some study to prove it.
Many residents accuse the government and the plant's previous owners of willful negligence.
Now, first up in the world of business, global markets have struggled amid ongoing worries over the US-China trade war and a potentially damaging Brexit. European shares faltered after a positive opening. London's FTSE and Paris's CAC both fell over 0.5%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped while the S&P 500 lost over 0.5%. The Nasdaq Composite has lost 1% because of market volatility over the trade war between the world's top two economies. Earlier, Asian markets traded mixed as investors played it safe amidst positivity from a recovering yuan and trade war fears. First up in sports, let's head over to Peru for the Pan American Games. The Dominican Republic have won gold in the women's volleyball final. In archery, Mexico's Alejandra Trujillo clinched gold in the women's class, while Crispin Duenas of Canada secured the top spot in the men's category. The Dominican Republic defeated Colombia by 3-1. The game was forced into a fourth set after Colombia took the second set. But the Dominican Republic scored 25 points against Colombia's 16 and to secure their 10th gold of the Games. And next up, let's take you to Belarus. Fans and players have been taking part in swamp soccer in the small village of Dombrovka as part of the local Festival of the Sea. 20 male and 4 female teams from all over the country are involved in the tournament. Swamp soccer is a form of association football that is played in bogs or swamps. The small pitch is mostly mud, which makes hitting the ball a tough job. A local school teacher says it was very tough to play in such challenging conditions.
It's hard to play in the mud. The legs get stuck, it's hard even to get up, and you must hit the ball as well. It's really hard.
The players, who were all non-professionals, seemed to enjoy falling and rolling in the mud as much as kicking the ball. For many, taking part in the game was about adrenaline and a healthy lifestyle.
We are simple guys who love soccer. Almost all of us in the team are from one village. We came here first of all because we love soccer. We never had any big success in the game, even on the regional level. But we believe in soccer. We love soccer and believe that the swamp soccer is exactly right for us.
Swamp soccer was initially used as an exercise for athletes and soldiers. It was officially born in Finland and is most popular in Belarus, Russia, Sweden, Iceland and the UK. Well, it's 37 degrees Celsius here in Lahore, but let's take a look at the weather around the world. And that was all I have from the News Bulletin at the moment, but do stay tuned to Indus News for further updates. And as always, thanks for watching.